How we going, folks? Welcome back to the Nightmare Cabin, and I'm joined again by my good friend Scott Walters. Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
So, Scott, if you're familiar with Scott by now, but and of course, there's no way you've seen my channel and not seen his. But Scott's been on the channel a couple of times now, and we've gone through a couple of bands' discographies. What have we done? We did Vengeance Rising, Deliverance,
and Mortification, maybe,
and Mortification. That's right. And yeah, I thought it's about time we did Scott's band. So I've got a big pile of CDs here, and hopefully, Scott, you, in the old archive there, you can remember everything. And
yeah, I got it.
And yeah, we're going to go through the discography of Ultimatum and go through the story of the band, one album at a time. And yeah, there's some great stuff amongst this. And I mean, I suppose. Yeah, how would you? There's a thrash metal backbone, but there's a lot of classic metal in there as well, isn't there? With Ultimatum.
Yeah, it's a good mixture of classic. We've never tried to be a thrash band. People always compare us to Exodus, but I think that's more due to my vocals than anything else, sounding a bit like Steve Zosa. But no, well, let's just go into it. I mean, our first demo, this was it. It was called Fatal Delay, and I don't know how bad the glare is on that thing.
Yeah.
We were in a band for maybe 6 months when we went and recorded this thing. Maybe not even that long. I can't remember, but it was a very short time. But 4-song demo, we needed something because we were trying to get gigs. We wanted to start playing shows.
Well, sorry, was Ultimatum your first band?
Ultimatum was my first actual band, yes.
Yeah.
Before that, I was in college, and then I got married, and I had kids, and that all because I mean I was only 21, 22 when I joined Ultimatum. So yeah, it was the first band. Like I said before that, I was in college. So so this actually features the first 2 songs I ever wrote, on it. It's Wickedness, Fatal Delay and Plea for Holiness are the 2 songs that I wrote on this one. And then the other 2 songs were from Robert's former bands, which we were talking about before we hit the record button, called Angelic Force, and I have that tape here. This is a full-length album that was released in 1988 on Alta Vista Records. It's since been reissued by Roxx Records on CD, and it's actually got the 1989 demo as well. And the song All I Need was also on here. Now this album features a female vocalist, way more. It's just straightforward heavy metal. I mean, I don't know what else to call it other than that. It's not thrash even slightly. So when we recorded this, we were looking. We needed something to get into the clubs. I mean, we could not get any shows, even into because we were a Christian band, we couldn't even get into the churches without a recording. Nobody knew who you were, they're not just going to bring in some unknown band. So we recorded this in a rush. We recorded 2 of our songs that we wrote together. The first 2 Robert and I wrote together, and then 2 of his songs from his older bands. And we put it out, sold about 200-300 copies of it, and decided we hated it and buried the rest of the copies that we still had left, and never did sell them again. And to this day, I don't like this demo tape at all. We didn't know what we were doing in the studio. We hadn't gelled as a band yet. We were still figuring out our sound. It was rushed, and I hate it.
So,
however,
if any metalers that live near Scott go around with a spade and get digging, and you never know, you might find yourself a box of demos, box of cassettes, and
yeah. Actually, if anybody really wants one, Robert Gutierrez, our guitar player, he still has a couple hundred copies at his house, and he does sell them occasionally. He doesn't sell them for very much, usually just for shipping plus a couple bucks. So, but this is something that nobody knows yet because it's not been announced. But this is the original promo photo from the Fatal Delay album. And this is the test pressing of the Fatal Delay vinyl that's coming out in early 2025, like January 2025.
So that demo's kind of going to be re-released.
Yep, remastered and put on vinyl, not remixed, just remastered. It'll be a split EP, so it'll be the 4 Ultimatum songs on one side, and then it'll have 4 demo tracks from the Musketeers on the B side, and it's on a release called Gems Volume 2. Gems Volume 1 and 2 are coming out at the same time, and Volume 1 features 2 other bands, Soldier and Taker. So those will be coming out on Roxx Records. Only 200 copies of each pressed, so yeah, they won't be around for long. But Yeah, Roxx has been asking me for years, and I literally mean years and years. Let us put out Fatal Delay. No. Let us put out Fatal Delay. No, I hate that demo. Let us put out Fatal Delay. No, I hate that demo. And they're finally like, I was like, he's like, come on, dude. People like it. Other people, just because you don't like it doesn't mean other people don't like it. And I'm like, all right, fine. So it's coming out.
Yeah. When you not saying no, not it just makes it bigger, doesn't it? It's like when Tom Warrior tries to bury Cold Lake. It's like you're just release it, man.
Yeah, it's already out. It's already out there. Some people have it, And, but in any case, it's just a different style. We just hadn't gelled yet as a band. It's not awful. I actually listened to the test pressing today. It came in the mail yesterday, and I was like cringing listening to it because I really don't like it. It's just my vocal style was different. I was trying to sing like a clean style of singing instead of the more gruff, thrashy sound that I eventually ended up doing. So it's okay. Only one song from that first demo made it onto the first album, which this is actually our second demo I have sitting here. There's the Symphonic Extremities 5-song demo.
Yeah.
And then we recorded 5 more songs for a second demo. So the first demo, there was only 50 of them released, and I don't even have a copy. That's one of the few things I don't have of the first Symphonic Extremities demo. Then we recorded a second one, and it had we recorded 5 more songs, and it ended up having 10 songs on it, and you can see there's the full 10 songs. So if anybody has that 5-song demo that was released first with a very similar cover to this one, there's only like 50 of them in the entire world because that's all we pressed. And we only pressed it just to send to record companies to see if we could get anybody to bite. And that was the whole point of it. I only know of one person in my life that owns it, and he lives in Norway. So, yeah.
I saw this on the, is it not Boone's Overstock? What's the other one? Soundmass.
Soundmass has it.
On cassette.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been. Well, it might have been. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there was cassettes pressed. They were sealed, and they were independent release. But anyhow, the 10-song album was recorded, and we were much happier with this. It was starting to gel better, and it did well. We got lots of good reviews and plays, and we got some bad reviews too. I mean, you're always going to get good and bad. That was one of the things I never minded. There was bad reviews. When we had our ultimatum.com website, I used to add the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I would post every review, man. And every once in a while, I would get one that was just like straight up nasty review. You like almost even doubted that they even listened to it. And I remember like one review we got said that and it was the Puppet of Destruction album, our second full length, and the review basically stated that we sounded like a clone of Sacred Warrior and Queensryche. And we're like, what? Doesn't sound anything like those two. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So anyhow, it was just a ridiculous review. But anyhow, we ended up getting picked up by a small label from this demo that we sent out out of Michigan, I believe. It was a very small label. They put out a couple thousand CD copies. We were stoked because the label cared, and back then CDs were expensive. Because that would have been what, 1996.
Let's look it up. Yeah, 1995.
1995, and
according to the Gospel of Metal Archives, anyway.
Yeah. So anyhow, we were stoked, but they signed several other bands that were great too. Godfear out of Texas, which is another killer band, but they went belly up a year later, so that left us with nothing. But they did put out the full length album, which you just showed. I actually have here's the vinyl copy that came out, I don't know, a few years ago, 2019, more than a few years ago.
This is a really good album. It's really varied, and it kind of has that sort of bit like a classic 80s vibe to it. It's got kind of like, reminds me of early Overkill.
Yeah, and, I give you that, and maybe a little bit of. There was definitely a lot of Iron Maiden influence in the guitar playing.
It's melodic. It's got like an 80s edge to it. I mean, Black Light was a standout for me.
Yeah, World of Sin had a huge Thin Lizzy Iron Maiden dual guitar thing going on through it.
Yeah.
Symphonic Extremities was probably our most popular song off this album. We played that thing almost through our entire 20 years together. We played that thing live. But I can tell you every single song on here we played live. Blink was another one. We played that one live all 20 years, almost every single show. And we even actually end up re-recording it.
Yeah.
That's us. So you have looks like your pressing is the retroactive remaster.
Yep.
Which is very, very hot. It's very loud. It's back then when Retro put it out, everybody was brickwalling CDs. So that one's pretty hot.
So I've got this one as well, but we could talk
about that. That was a bootleg. That Live Extremities was a bootleg that came out as a cassette, and back in the day there was, I don't know if you remember, there was White Throne magazine and Heaven's Metal and there was all these print magazines and and fanzines, and inside of Heaven's Metal magazine, that's us. So inside the magazine was an ad for, it said Ultimatum live in Texas, and it was that Live Extremities thing, and it had a picture of Robert, our guitar player, on the cover. It was just black ink on a green J card. So as I contacted the company, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool! I want a copy." So I contacted the company. I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm the singer in the band. Is there any way I can get a copy?" And never heard from them again. They refused to send me a copy. So I tried buying a copy, and back then you had to send a check in the mail. You couldn't, there was no PayPal.
yeah. There's no. People don't realize, you don't just click a button on the screen and you get to send a check and put it in and just hope for the best. And like a month later, if you were lucky,
you got it. You're right. So I finally was like, well, since I didn't hear back from them, so I just sent a check to get it to get my own recording, and they never sent it. They never cashed the check either. So they never sent it back, but they never cashed it. Yeah. So weird. But anyhow, some other people got it, so I got to hear it. And then the same guy who has the demos from Norway, he actually had a copy of the original Live Extremities tape that he had purchased. So when we decided to bootleg our own bootleg and put it out on the CD, we put about, I can't remember if it was 100 copies out on our own. And can you show me yours again?
This must be
it must be Roxx, right?
This is on Roxx, yeah.
Yeah. So there was one, and it was on a fake label called Heart of Metal, and I didn't even do the artwork. Somebody else did it. It was put out on CD, and then Roxx several years later decided to release it again. But it is definitely a bootleg recording. It was, I don't even know how it was recorded. It might have been through the soundboard. It sounds to me like it was from a condenser mic, but I don't know for 100%. But I can tell you about that. It's actually not one show. It's two shows split together from the same club. So I'm assuming that somebody from the club did it, and it was not from Texas. It was from Albuquerque. So you can actually hear the difference about halfway through the show. The sound quality changes because it's two different shows.
But they were both in 1995. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it was all stuff from the early years, but there was a track on there that we ended up dropping and never recording anywhere else. I think it's called, was it called Chalkline? Is that on there, Chalkline?
Yes, number 8, yeah.
Yep, Chalkline. So we recorded that song. We always started off with a bass solo or a bass improv before it, and then the song had this kind of funky bass what he would do, and we wrote a song around that. It was fun song to do. Basically, remember back in the day, you used to see the old black and white movies, and when someone died, they do the chalk lines around them.
Yeah,
that's what the song was about. The chalk lines.
Dick Tracy and
yeah. But our bass player at the time, his name was Tom Michaels. The dude is just phenomenal bass player. I mean, he's like an Yngwie on bass. You know what I mean? He's just that good. So people were always trying to steal him from us. And finally somebody did. A bigger band took him from us, and band was called Seventh Sign. They were also from Albuquerque. And so he joined Seventh Sign. And when he did, and they put their new album out with him, one of the songs on their new album was Chalkline with different words and different stuff. So yeah, he took our that song with him. We wrote it together. He wrote the bass line, but all the other stuff was written as a band together. But yeah, it ended up being as part of a Seventh Sign song. So we just dropped it all together. It wasn't worth it. We weren't going to fight over it. And It was more of a fun concert thing to do than anything else. And then we did a lot of shows. We were constantly doing shows. And then in order to get ourselves a bigger name, we started bringing bands in, and so we would book venues and bring other bands in so that we could do shows with them. So we were bringing in bands like Precious Death and Jesus Freaks, and there were so many bands we played with. Mortification. I
was going through some booklets earlier, and
Extol.
Yeah, you've got all the there's loads of posters and flyers of the bands you played with. Yeah, you really did. You got around.
Yeah, we were playing a lot of shows at the time, and we were not only that, we were practicing every week, 3 days a week. So we were just becoming like tight as a dime, and it was pretty fun. We ended up doing a show with Steve Rowe from Mortification, and we booked the venue. We brought him in, and it was Ultimatum, Jesus Freaks, and Mortification. The place was packed. I mean, there was well over 500 people in this little place, just all crammed in there. And we got up on stage and played first, and Steve Rowe sat on the side of the stage, and this is before he got sick, and watched the entire show. And then we stuck around afterwards. We went to our merch table. We signed autographs and all the fun stuff that you do, and met people. And then Steve Rowe, at the end of the show, came up to us and he said, "Man, I loved your set." He goes, "I love your music." He said, "I want to buy everything on your merch table." Everything? He goes, "Yep, I want it all." He goes, "We're just starting our tour." He goes, "I'll sell your stuff on tour." He goes, "I'll have it gone before the end of the tour." He goes, "I'll help promote you." He goes, and so he goes, "I love it. Love your band." So I'm like, right on. So that rest of that tour, you can see there's tons of pictures of Steve Rowe wearing Ultimatum shirts on stage.
Yeah,
because he bought all our stuff. He bought all our shirts. He bought all our he bought everything we had at the table. And of course, we gave him a smoking deal on it so he could make money to it too. But and then so from that gig, he started. Back then, he just started doing Row Productions, which was his label. And he did like the Australian metal compilation. He did the Norwegian metal compilation. Well, then he did one for the United States. Excuse me for a second. And he called me on the phone, and I was all geeked out getting a phone call. Back then, it wasn't, you didn't have Messenger and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. It was a little phone, and it was costing you $3 a minute, Yeah. And I got a phone call from Steve, and in his thick accent, he called me up. "Hey, bro, what's happening?" And I'm like, "Hey, Steve, what's going on?" He goes, "Hey, I want you to record a brand new song for our compilation. Would you do it?" And I'm like, "Sure." So we went in and we recorded "World of Sin," which now is on the Symphonic Extremities album, and it wasn't on the original 10-song one that I showed you earlier, wherever that tape was. This one, that song wasn't on here. So we went in and recorded it. It was a freaking nightmare recording it. Our drummer at the time, who was the most cool guy in the world, his name was Mike Lynch, but he just refused to do the double bass part of the song that we wanted. So we ended up single kicking the whole song, which was okay, but it's just not what we were wanting.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we recorded the song, got it finished, and sent it off to Steve, and he put it on the compilation. And then the compilation came out, did really well, but we never heard from Steve again. And then I come to find out from another source that the reason Steve didn't call us back again is because he didn't like the song at all. He hated the song. So I was like, okay. So we were like, now we're on a mission. So we went into the studio and we recorded a demo version of the song "Never," which became one of our more popular songs. And that was like I told you, it was a song we played at every single show for our entire existence after that time. So we did that song, we recorded a demo, and I sent him a demo cassette in the mail all the way to Australia. And I'm like, "Here you go, dude. Here's our new track. What do you think of it?" Again, I get a phone call. "Dude, if your whole album is as good as this," he goes, "I want to sign you to a 3-album contract." And he did. So we ended up signing with Row Productions for a 3-album contract. We were right in the middle of recording.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, I didn't realize you were signed with Row. Yeah.
Yeah, the first album came out on Row Productions, and then on top of that, Row Productions had just gotten picked up by a big distribution company called Diamante. Mm-hmm. So our album would have been one of the first to come out on Diamante. So that means it would have had, and back then you had mail order, but it was sending in checks. You didn't have like it is now. You go online and this is still the 90s. It was the early 90s. So sorry, got off my thought for a second. Anyhow, the album came out, and this Puppet of Destruction finally came out on his label, and he put out a full page ad in Heaven's Metal, full color ad in Heaven's Metal magazine. It was split, half Ultimatum and half Mortification, and both our albums were coming out on the same day at the same time. And he sent copies of both to Heaven's Metal, and that's the review I was talking about earlier. The reviewer at Heaven's Metal said that we sounded like Sacred Warrior, and he said our album cover was a ripoff of Bruce Dickinson's Accident of Birth. I guess I could show the cover so people know what we're talking about. This is the here's the cover. That's the vinyl version.
Here we go. Yep.
So, but
that's hardly a rip-off of Accident of Birth, is it? I mean,
well, first of all, the guy who runs the magazine is a good friend of mine. His name is Doug Van Pelt, and the album got delayed over a year because we were with another label called Morphine Records, and we had to get out of our contract at Morphine Records in order to get on a contract with Roxx. I mean, with Row, which we really wanted to do because Morphine was just a small independent label, and Row had the distribution to get us into all the stores. So by the time the album got out, it was a year later. Well, in the meantime, Accident of Birth had come out. But I had shown Doug the artwork to the album before Accident of Birth even came out. So he knew the album wasn't a copy because it was out before that. But he still let the reviewer write that. And when I questioned him on it, he's like, yeah, well, I don't correct reviewers. I'm like, oh, he just straight up lied. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not like it's an opinion, like, you know, if it's something you didn't like about the music, but no, it was something that he could have been straight on. And if you had been straight in that, he probably would have gone, oh, sorry, I didn't realize, and would have corrected it, you know.
Right, yeah. But I mean, the review was so nasty on the Puppet of Destruction album that we, instead of doing band photos, we did x-rays. The whole band did x-rays of each other.
Yeah.
So, because our drummer at the time was an x-ray tech. So if you look on the CD version, there's a picture of me holding the mic, and it's all x-rays, and the other guys are holding like one guy's got a guitar pick in his mouth, and yeah, there's me up there. The other guy's got his guitar head. You can see behind his head is his guitar.
Yeah.
You can see so yeah, we just thought it was fun. And that magazine review said that we ripped off, I don't know, some punk band at the time that was popular that had apparently a skull on the cover.
There's all sorts, yeah. Yeah,
that's the reissue, so it's got a lot of cool photos in it and stuff. But in any case, regardless of the negative reviews, the album came out. It still sold really well for us. It was in all the stores. I mean, I actually went into a Hastings, which was a big chain store in the United States, which is no longer around. But I went into it, and I'm like, on the day it was released, I'm like, I want to buy my own album in a store.
Yeah.
So I did. I walked into the store, and I'm like, hey, the new Ultimatum and the new Mortification is coming out today. I want to buy both. Where are they? So I walk over to the metal section, and I look, and I flip through, and I found the Mortification right on. Got it. Then I'm like, where's the Ultimatum one? So I go up and I ask, and I'm like, do you guys have it? Did you get it in? And they look it up. Oh, yeah, we have 2 copies. I'm like, okay, well, where's the 2 copies? He's like, oh, it's in the gospel section. Huh? So I go over to the gospel section, you know, the BBCC Winans and Amy Grant and that kind of stuff. And there it is sitting in there. And I'm like, the guy walked over with me. I'm like, why is it in here? He goes, it's a gospel album. I said, no, it's not. It's a heavy metal album. He goes, no, it's a gospel album. It's on Diamante Distribution. I said, so is this one. He goes, well, the lyrics are Christian. I'm like, so is this one. I said, it's metal. It doesn't belong here. It belongs over there. He argued with me about it, and I was like, whatever. So I took my copy, and I took the other one. I walked over, and I put it in the metal section. I went back like a week later, and it was gone. So it wasn't in either section. But
right. So
it was fun to be able to go into the brick and mortar store and buy my own album, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world back then, you know.
Yeah, but no, it must be good to be able to do that. I've never been able to do that.
Yeah, it was
one thing I did put out.
I'm sure most people wouldn't care about it, but I loved it. And the next album came out not that long afterwards.
We haven't really spoke about the music on.
Puppet of Destruction.
Yeah, how did you feel? You left. I mean, yeah, like you say, you didn't really intend it to be a thrash band, but
it definitely got thrash. It definitely got thrashier, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely tighter and more focused on this album as well. Like on the first album, there's a little bit of everything. It's very varied, whilst feels on this album it's a bit more.
Yeah, I agree. It's more. Yeah, it's more. What's the word? I don't know. I just think we gelled as a band at that point. We were tight as a
You
dime.
were in your groove. Yeah, you'd found you found your sound.
There's not really even a song on here I don't like. So I mean, I like them all. But Cross Hope was a funny song because that song had I didn't use a whole lot of effects on my vocals. It was pretty much clean. It was just raw grunting it out, singing whatever it was. Some songs I sang on. Sometimes I started doing a little bit of growling here and there on that one, but not like death metal growling.
Yeah.
But Cross Hope was fun because it had a delay. Cross hope, but it had this effect on it. But we were used to try and play that song live, but we were always playing small venues or clubs, so there wasn't like a sound guy there that could hit the effect for me, when I wanted it to. So what we ended up doing was buying a guitar pedal, a delay pedal for guitar, and we tweaked the pedal and we put it into my mic cord that ran into my mic. And then when he got to that part and I had to do the cross, I'd sit cross and I'd hit the guitar effect and it would hit the echo for me, and it worked fine. I play this. This is almost a Spinal Tap thing going on right here. I'm telling you about. Excuse me again.
Just a quick one. While you said the Never demo that you sent off to Steve. Is that the bonus track on this edition?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
That's the demo that we sent to Steve. I'll tell you about that in a second too. But anyhow, so with this one show we played in Austin, Texas, and it was hot. It was 115 degrees outside, and they had us on one of those flatbed trailer trucks. They had two of them together. That was the stage, and they had lights and everything, but they had no covering. So it was hot. So anyhow, we're on stage and we're doing our show and we're having a great time. And we're right in the middle of the song Burn, which is also on that album, and which got a lot of fast double bass. And our drummer at the time, Sean, right in the middle of the song just stops playing. The rest of us keep playing. I turn around and look at him, I'm like, what's going on? And he's white as a ghost. And all of a sudden he snaps out of it, does a drum roll and gets back into the song. We finish the song. Well, then we go into Cross Hope and we're singing Cross Hope and I get to the chorus and I go to step on that pedal. And as I step on the pedal, boom, I went down to the ground, man. I just went down. And I was like, whoa, I got back up. I finished the song, no big deal. And then the stage manager from the festival that we were playing came up and he's like, all right, he grabs the mic from me. He's like, we're going to take a break for 15 minutes. He goes, it's obviously very hot outside and the band is suffering from heat exhaustion. And sure enough, man, they gave us a bunch of electrolytes and we got up stage later and finished the show. But man, that was just hot. But it was funny to have something Spinal Tappers like that to step on a pedal.
Something like you was going to say like the stage was live or something like that. Everyone was just getting shocked.
And another thing that was funny that happened at the same show was our bass player at the time, he was filling in for another band too. It was like a hardcore band, and he was up on the stage and he was just thrashing around doing the hardcore thing, and he fell off the front of the stage and I don't know if you've ever seen those trailer trucks, but the front's got these big metal stripes to protect him from getting hit, and he just scraped all the way down. His whole front of his leg was just raw, looked like meat. He got back on stage and played too, but he did it. But in any case, the Never. So the demo version is pretty thin sounding. But we got the recording contract. We'd already started recording the album. Steve Rowe helped us pay for the rest of the studio time. And we recorded the whole album, finished it, sent it out, came out on Rowe, and we got it in the mail, and we were really unhappy because they mastered the album in Australia, and apparently whatever room they were mastering in had again, this is before all the digital stuff,
Yeah.
There was way too much bass in the room. So the album was very thin and trebly. So Rowe owned the album for 10 years, so we couldn't do anything about it. But once 1998 rolled around, or 2008 rolled around, that's the copy you have. We were like, okay, we had the original masters, so we were able to take it, have it mastered properly, so they got the bass back in. Well, the other thing that happened on that album was the producer we were working with at the time. When we recorded the album and it was all finished, he and our bass player were constantly butting heads, man. They just could not get along. He was constantly criticizing him, and like I said, our bass player was, like I said, he's like Yngwie on bass. Well, the producer was like wanting him to play more simple stuff. He's like, no, it just needs to be a pounding riff. He's like, hey, it's my music, not yours. And so they were just constantly fighting. Well, on the song Never, after the album came out, I sent all the guys their copies, and Tom calls me on the phone. He's going ballistic. What the heck? I'm like, what's the matter, dude? He goes, that's not my bass on Never. What do you mean it's not your bass?
Yeah.
That's not my bass. That's not what I recorded. And I'm like, okay, let me call the studio and find out what happened. And the guy who was running the studio, he's like, yeah, I didn't like what he did, so I went back after you guys left and recorded bass on the keyboard and did MIDI bass on that song,
No.
and replaced his bass lines. I'm like, dude, you should have told us at least. I said, that's just wrong. Nothing we could do about it. But on the copy you have now, the 2018 version, it's got the correct bass lines on it, so it's actually different than the version that came out originally. So it's much heavier, much rawer, and it's the way we wanted it to sound. So it's a lot different than the demo version that's on the end.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. He blew. I don't blame him for blowing a gasket.
Roxx Records. Yeah. No, that's crazy. Yeah. How dare you? You know.
Unfortunately, the vinyl for this thing is like impossible to find. They only pressed. I don't remember how many. This is a test pressing, but the last copy I saw on Discogs was like $250. So, yikes!
Yeah. The thing is, these people, they put these things on for sale, and they put them at these ridiculous prices, and they just sit there for years. It's like, surely if you want to sell it, you want it gone. You know, like, all right, I know you might want to get a pretty penny for it. You might be worth something. Maybe it's rare or it's signed or whatever. But yeah, all right, you want to get. But surely if you don't want it, you want someone else to have it.
Right.
You know, it's
Some people, man, they'll laugh, but it sold. Somebody bought it because it's not there anymore. But yeah,
So, did you do any touring for Puppet of Destruction, or
Ultimatum never went on a long period tour ever? We did sporadic gigs constantly. The closest we came to touring was we did like 3 shows in a weekend where we played New Mexico, Arizona, and California. I think that's what it was. New Mexico, Arizona, California. So it was like 3 dates. Yeah, that's the closest we ever come to actually doing a tour. We played all over the place. We played all over the United States. We quite a few times. We played. I don't know. We didn't play in all 50 states, but we played in a lot of them. But it was always weekend dates. You know, we played a lot of festivals, and we played in locally a lot.
Yeah.
And then after that album came out, we stopped playing the churches at all and started playing just the clubs. We had too many issues with the church, and I'm not putting the church down. Don't get me wrong. It was just not where we were supposed to be. It wasn't our crowd.
The problem, isn't it? The Christian bands get more flack off of the.
Yeah. But we started gaining more popularity when we got away from the church and started playing in the clubs, to the point where when we were playing in New Mexico in the 90s. I mean, we were packing the clubs out, which was great. And it didn't matter who we were playing with, you know, which was what we wanted. We wanted to play in the clubs. We didn't want to play in the churches. The other thing is, like, we played in one church, and I got lots of Spinal Tap stories. We played this one church, and I'm like, are you sure you realize we're a thrash band, right? And yeah. We want you guys here. We have a lot of youth. They want to see you. And matter of fact, we have a band in our youth group that wants to open up for you guys if you don't mind. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. So the opening band, we get to the show that day. The opening band gets on stage, and they are horrible. I mean, they're just very unpracticed, obviously very young, new garage band. So they cleared out the room. Yeah. I mean, cleared out the room. Well, then we cleared it out. They cleared it all out. We got our stuff on. And by the time we were ready to play, the room was packed full of people from the church again. We weren't even into the second song, and we had, I'm going to say, 3 or 4 6-year-olds running around the room having a blast, and everybody else left. So we played our whole set.
Yeah, I've had shows like that.
Of 6-year-olds, because it just, that's not what people wanted at that church wanted to hear. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was like we were pretty much a thrash band. So yeah, it just wasn't the right venue, and that happened to us more than one time. That's why we stopped playing the churches. It just wasn't where we were supposed to be. So
it doesn't feel like. I mean, Ultimatum aren't a band. You know, when someone thinks, "Oh, a Christian band," a sort of image comes into their head. But I think if I played Ultimatum to anyone without and not told them you're Christian, but I don't think they would know unless they really sat and read the lyrics.
And even then, I always tried really hard not to make them. I always tried to make the lyrics thoughtful, not just, you know, and nothing against Striper, but I wasn't trying to do the rock for the rock thing, you know?
Yeah. And,
or,
I mean, if you did like a Thrash playlist or something like that, you could easily just slot Ultimatum songs in there and it would flow, you know, it wouldn't.
Yeah. That's what we were trying to do. Should I move on to the next one? I don't.
Right. So let's, so we had Symphonic Extremities in 1995, Puppet of Destruction in 1998, and then the third album, The Mechanics of Perilous Times. Here we go. This is
that's the remaster on
Retroactive I've got.
Here's the vinyl pressing of it, and so far all these covers were done by me, and all the layouts and everything for almost every single issue, no matter who put it out. So this one was interesting because, again, we were slotted to come out on Row. The second album was scheduled to be out on Row, and we got an offer from Massacre Records, I believe it was, to do a compilation, a Testament tribute compilation.
All right, yeah.
Called Into the Pit. So we did a song on that. We did Sins of Omission was the song that we did, which was a blast. We had a lot of fun doing that one. And that song went out everywhere. Well, because that song did so well, we ended up getting picked up by Massacre Records for the third album. So I called Steve Rowe and I'm like, hey, you know, we're getting an offer from Massacre Records, and we had a three album contract with him.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do you think? What do you want us to do? And I mean, we were more than willing to stay with Rowe if we had to, but he's like, nope. He's like, dude, he goes, that is so awesome. He goes, the whole reason I signed you is, he goes, I just believed you guys could move it up to the next level. And he goes, so I was hoping that my label could be a stepping stone to get you guys to the next level. And he goes, so I'm going to release you from your contract 100%. You owe me nothing. He goes, go for it. Sign with them. So we ended up signing with Massacre. They ended up putting us on their thrash metal sub-label that they had for a while called Gutter Records, with Blackened and a bunch of other bands that were around at the time. Remember Blood Red Angel? They were on the label too. I think they were a German band. But in any case, we ended up pressing 2,000 copies in the United States on our own and selling them at shows because Massacre wasn't going to have anything for us for quite some time. They had like almost 6 months of us waiting. So we sold through those 2,000 copies, and then Massacre pressed up 10,000 copies of the album because back then it was 1999, 2000. CDs were still the main listen source. And they pressed up, I think they said, several thousand copies, and then they pressed up 800 promo versions. The only difference was the CD disc had promo all over it, written all over it, and it was in black and white instead of full color.
Yeah.
Again, I did all the layouts. They let me do it because they didn't have to pay for it. And it did pretty well. I mean, we sold a lot of them, and then, and several years later, Retroactive put it out again, and they pressed up another 4,000 copies. So that album probably altogether sold 10 to 12,000 copies for us, which is not bad for an independent band.
That's crazy, yeah. That's good.
So anyhow, I like that album though. We definitely stepped more into the thrash there on that one.
So did you go into like a hiatus or something like that because there's a gap?
Okay, well, no,
5-year
we
gap?
didn't. We continued to do shows constantly. We were recording demos. The problem is we were having problems keeping bass players.
Yeah.
Tom got picked up, like I said, by the other band. He came back and then he was out again, and we were trying out bass players, and it was we had some interesting tryouts. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
We had one guy coming to practice for a tryout, and he walked in. He's got this. We have full stack amps even at practice, they had these full stack amps, and he walks in, he's got this little pig nose amp for his bass, and in his bass, and he walks in, and we're like, that's that your amp? He goes, yeah, it's my amp. And I'm like, okay. And I realize if you join this band, you're going to have to get something more professional than that. Yeah. No problem. It's like, I'll just run you through the board so we can actually hear you, because we're not going to be able to hear that amp. He plays. So we start messing around, and he's tuned differently than we are. The guy we tuned a half step down to, was it D major, or most people call it E flat, and he was tuned straight up E. So we're like, dude, you're tuned wrong. You have to retune your bass to, in order to play these songs. And he's like, I don't know how to do that. Can you guys tune the bass for me? Yeah. So that didn't work out too well. We tried out a bunch of different people, and then we tried out another guy. He came, and he had the look. It was great. He did really well. He played with us. He came to like 2 or 3 practices afterwards, and then all of a sudden disappeared. Yeah. Never heard from the guy again. What the heck?
Yeah, you get that. I've had that.
So then Tom came back in the band again, bass player. So we ended up doing some shows with him. We ended up going out and doing a Striper Expo in Anaheim, California, when Striper was broken up back then, and they had this big expo. One year it was in New York City, and then the next year it was in California. We played the California gig, and it was fun. They had 3 stages set up. We were originally set up to be on the main stage, but Striper said that we were too heavy and didn't want us on the main stage, so we ended up playing on the outdoor stage with Dark Angel. Oil. With Ron Reinhardt from Dark Angel.
Yeah.
Yes, we played with Oil and Joshua and us, and there was one other band, I can't remember the name of them, but it was really fun. But that was the last show for Tom Michaels, because he and Robert, they just were not getting along, and Robert's amp went out as we got on stage. One of the tubes in his amp blew. Yeah, we didn't have a backup, so we were trying to get someone to loan us a guitar amp. And Rob and the bass players over there, come on, man, just play. And we're like, he doesn't have an amp. Yeah. So then it came up. Well, oddly enough, one of the guys who came to see us play he was a bass player, had been playing bass most of his life, and he had gone to jail for he was one of the meth dealers for the what is that big biker club out there called Hell's Angels.
Hell's Angels, yeah.
So it was a big deal. He got arrested. He was one of them. He was a big meth dealer. He got arrested, went to jail, and he became a believer just by reading the Bible in jail, because he had nothing else to do. So he just read the Bible 3 or 4 times over. Well, when he got out of jail, he started looking for some Christian music to play, and he bought that same compilation that I was telling you about. Yeah. that we were on, and that he liked that track so much. He was like, when he saw we were coming to California, playing Anaheim, he's like, I'm going. He doesn't even like Striper, but he liked us, so he came to watch the show. And then we left that day, and then I got on our ultimatum.net website, which is no longer up, and I put on their bassist wanted, and that guy who came to see the show answered it the very next day. That was Rob Whitlock, who has become one of my closest friends, became Ultimatum's bassist from that time on, and he's still, if we ever get together again, he will be our bassist, or there will be no more Ultimatum.
So he was in the Hells Angels, went to prison, found faith in prison, and been on the straight and narrow ever since.
Yeah, he actually wasn't in Hells Angels. He just was the meth dealer for them.
Yeah, okay, what you mean, yeah.
But yeah, I don't think he was actually a biker. He's just a druggie. But yeah, he basically says that jail became his, and I'm not sure I should be sharing his testimony, but he's not shy about it. So, but he basically says that he was Jonah and jail was his whale. He had to be swallowed by the whale to wake him up.
Amen. So, yeah, awesome. That's amazing.
But yeah, and so that's what happened. So we recorded that album, and all these we were having issues with bass players and drummers. Man, it was just a nightmare. We're trying to keep people in the band at that point. So that's why nothing got recorded. However, we did record an EP called Till the End in that time period.
I've not got that one. Yeah.
I didn't pull it either, but it's really hard to find. Only came out on CD. I think it's 6 songs. Without looking at it, it was 4 new tracks that we recorded that we were going to record for Into the Pit, which ended up on Into the Pit, but we re-recorded them. The Testament cover that we did for that compilation, Sins of Omission, and then I think there was a live track on there too. But finally, we have finally recorded Into the Pit. Which, here it is.
I think push comes to shove, this is my favorite.
If you were to ask me my favorite all original studio album, this would be mine too.
Yeah. Death Wish, awesome song. Blood Covenant, Heart of Metal, awesome cover of Rothschild. Pretty much all the way down. Great album.
Yeah, thank you.
Songs are really catchy. The riffs are awesome. Yeah, it's a full package.
Took a long time to get that album out, boy. And that was the other thing is once we got all the band members, recording became an issue. We were in a great studio, which we loved, with a guy who knows metal, which was also great. But our drummer at the time, Sean Griego, like I said, we were having a lot of troubles with bass players and drummers. We had all the songs recorded, and we had the actual song "Heart of Metal." If you listen to the double bass in that song, it is very, very fast.
Yeah.
And Sean wrote all the drum parts, but when we got into the studio, for whatever reason, he got through most of the songs fine, but there was like 4 tracks he was just struggling with.
So you done a gig there, sorry, with Oil? Yeah.
We played with Oil, several times. So he was struggling with it, and it come to find out it was costing us a lot of money because we were paying our own studio costs for this, and we didn't have. Again, we were without a label, so we were recording the album on our own. We were going to put it out on our own before we ended up getting picked up by Retrospective. But yeah, Sean was struggling in life. Things were going on in his life, and he would start recording, and the engineer would just basically tell him, just keep playing. If you screw up, keep playing. We'll go back. We'll fix it. We'll cut it in. It's not a big deal. But Sean refused. He's like, I want to play the song right all the way through. And so there was like 4 tracks, including Heart of Metal, that he just struggled with it. And it wasn't because he was a bad drummer. It's very different playing live than it is playing to a click track in a studio where you've got to stay right, and you got to stay in perfect timing. When you play live, you kind of ebb and flow when you play off each other.
It happens all the time. Yeah, it was. I remember a load of times when I called him in my bands. It was, why am I getting this wrong so much? When we're in rehearsal, we blast through it. It's like, because we are just going for it. It's not. Yeah. In the studio, it's got to be precise. Yeah.
So anyhow, we recorded the album. We still had the 4 tracks to finish up. The studio was so tired of the shenanigans from the drumming that we couldn't even they wouldn't even book us any more time. So the label, we did sign with Retrospective Records. They paid for the rest of they helped us pay for the rest of the studio time. And he made a deal. I don't know how much they paid. He made a deal, paid the studio directly, and we got back in the studio. And I told the rest of the guys, well, I kind of became a tyrant at this point because now we're on our 4th album. I knew the studio. I knew what worked. I knew what didn't work for us as a band. And I just told the guys, and Robert agreed, we need to bring in a studio drummer to finish these 4 tracks. Yeah. We cannot continue to spend thousands of dollars and have nothing to show for it. So we brought in Alan Tuma from the Moshketeers and Combat Faith, his 2 bands he was in. And he nailed all 4 tracks like in 1 or 2 times. Yeah. So again, it wasn't that Sean was a bad drummer at all. I don't mean to put him down. He was he's just having a lot of struggles in life at the time. And it was just affecting his playing in the studio, and he was getting frustrated, but he got angry about it, which I understand as well, and he quit. But Alan ended up joining the band, and he ended up staying our drummer for the remainder of the time in Ultimatum. And that guy is just a beast of a drummer. Yeah. I mean, he could play anything. And
the Moshketeers as well are massive in the scene as well, aren't they?
Yeah. So he was great, and I love Alan to this day. So anyhow, Into the Pit. That was our 4th album, our 4th full-length album. Other than the EP.
That's a pretty cool artwork as well.
And this is the first cover that I didn't design myself. The guy's name is Retrospective. I wanted something. I can't remember I think I said Iced Earth. I said, and this is before Iced Earth was really popular. And I said, like, I want something like Iced Earth. I want it to look almost like a comic book. The album's called Into the Pit. I want this. And he came up with this drawing, this black and white drawing of this little creature right here. And I'm like, that's it, dude. And he created it, Retrospective. And yeah, I love the cover. It's one of my favorites. So I did the layout and everything else, but he did the cover. I actually this is kind of fun. I don't know. I didn't pull this for the show. It just happens to be sitting here. Somebody bought me this. Check this out.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's one of those, yeah, all over print things. I've never worn it. I just think it's the coolest thing in the world. But anyhow. Well, then the label, we did the Wrathchild song, and we had done a cover of Burn, and people were digging on the Wrathchild song. So the label said, "Hey, you guys want to record well, actually, I think we had the idea to do a covers EP, and the label's like, no, I don't do EPs. If you want to do a full length, he goes, I'll cover it. So we stayed with Retroactive. They paid for the entire thing, all the recording, and we ended up going on to whatever the sites were back then. It was before Facebook and all that. They were like, remember back then they had like boards you were on anyhow, we had an Ultimatum board, and people.
Oh yeah, that's like a forum thing, yeah.
Yeah, the forum. So we had a forum. So we basically asked all the Ultimatum fans on our forum, what songs you think we should record. So we came up with this list of like 100 tracks between what people wanted and what we wanted, and everybody in the band picked. I'm sorry, I got allergies and they're driving me up the wall.
No worries, man.
So anyhow, everybody picked songs. So about, I'm gonna say half the songs on Lex Metalis are songs the band picked, and the other half are songs that other people picked. Like Ton of Bricks, the Metal Church track. That was somebody online picked that, and that was a great choice.
That is a great choice. Yeah.
Not only was it a great choice, but I loved our version of it, and I actually contacted Kurt Vander, who before we recorded the track, to let him know we were recording it, and if I just wanted to make sure it was okay because we didn't have any money to pay anybody. And he's like, "No, man, go for it." He goes, "Just send me a copy. I'd love to hear it."
Yeah.
So I sent him a copy, and after the fact, and he loved it, which was really nice. But the best compliment I got from that album was we recorded a Mortification track.
Yeah, I'm just going for the booklet here. Yeah,
that's me.
Yeah, that's you on the cover, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. That's my wristbands. Those wristbands have been on several covers, actually.
All right.
But yeah, anyhow, so if you look at there's a set list on there from that when we were playing all the shows. Ton of Bricks became part of our set list. We played it a lot. So, but yeah, anyhow, the best compliment I got was from Steve Rowe, Mortification, because we played one of his tracks on there, and he sent me a letter in the mail that I still have to this day. That he's like, "Man," he goes, "I like your version better than ours," which I thought was
can't get better than that, can you? Yeah.
Yeah, the original artist saying something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun to record. We took a lot of flack for it because you guys are recording secular songs. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. What do you think we listen to?
Yeah.
So, but Steve Rowe really stepped up for us. He stayed our friend, and he always backed Ultimatum. So when they put out their next album, he got he got one of those denim vests, with the patches all over it. He had one made, and if you look at his vest, he's got an Ultimatum patch up here, and then he's got Saxon and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, and he wore that just for us, so that people would stop bugging us about recording that album. But it did well. It's never been on vinyl. That's the only one that's not been on vinyl, and the reason is it's too long. It would have to be a double.
Oh right, yeah, probably because the one I've got as well has got Sins of Omission and Burn as a bonus track. I've got the Retroactive.
Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly go through the. Yes, you've got Metal Church, got Musketeers, Twisted Sister, Creeping Death by Metallica, Denim and Leather, Saxon, Gut Wrench, as you mentioned, by Mortification. Got Motor Psycho by Megadeth, Metal Health, A Quiet Riot, Stealer by Judas Priest, Iron Fist by Motorhead, Can't Get Out, Vengeance Rising, and Wrathchild, Maiden, and Power Surge by Overkill, and then Sins of Omission by Testament, and Burn by Deep Purple. Yeah. I mean,
I can tell you I can tell you the 2 tracks that Robert picked on there were Quiet Riot.
Yeah.
He wanted to he really, really wanted to record AC/DC's For Those About to Rock. And I'm like, dude, that is too iconic of a song. We're never going to be able to pull that off. And no one's going to like it. It was just, so he kept trying to put all these different songs, and he finally came with that one.
Brian Johnson's vocals as well. Like AC/DC songs are harder to sing than people think. Like,
and so was that Quiet Riot song, man.
Yeah.
Kevin Brow, man, that dude he was up there, man. He was high register. So there's a really high pitched scream in our version of it. That's not me. Most people assume it is. That's actually our bass player, Rob Whitlock. He's like, can I do that part? When we were recording it, he's like, I want to do that part. I'm like, go ahead. We'll see what it sounds like. He did it like 2 or 3 times, blew his voice out, man. He couldn't talk.
Yeah.
But that's him. Then they came out great. But my choices were Moshketeers, Vengeance Rising, Ton of Bricks, because that's one that came from on the web, but I really want to do it.
Yeah, and that song really suits you. There's nothing better than when a band covers a song where it's almost like they didn't write the song, but they should have. It's made for them, and yeah, Ton of Bricks suits Ultimatum down to the ground. And
that's what we try to do with all the songs. Yeah. We were like, let's make them sound like Ultimatum songs. Let's not make. There's no reason to. What's the point of re-recording a song and make it the same as the original?
You're similar vocalists as well. You know, you get compared to Steve Zetro from Exodus.
Yep, and Bobby Bliss from Overkill. Yeah.
Yeah, but the original guy from Metal Church as well. Yeah, you're in the same ballpark as him, definitely.
David Ween. Yeah,
that was a great album as well. The Dark. First, what did he do the first 2 albums or first 3 albums? That guy. He's no longer with us, is he?
No, he passed away. Yeah. But yeah, he did the first 2 albums, then he did the Masterpiece.
And then he came back, didn't he?
Yeah, he did that one album called Masterpiece. Yeah. So let's see, where are we? Oh, after that, next album would have been.
We're done. Yeah, we're on the last one. Yeah. So when I first met you, I was asking you about Ultimatum. I was like, right, I want to get into your band. What's the where do I start? What's the best one to start with? And you said, get this one first, Heart of Metal. And and I'll let you explain why.
Well, it's sort of, you have the CD's got more songs than the vinyl has, but the CD's got like what, 15 songs?
18
songs. The vinyl only has 10. So, but it's and there's actually this version of it too, which is really, really hard to find. It's the Heart of Metal box set.
Did you do a box set that had it had everything in? Was that like a wooden box set?
No, that was Vengeance Rising.
Vengeance Rising, sorry. Yeah.
This is the only box that we did, but it's got it's really nice. It's got this, black box with white ink, and it's got silver dye on it, and then you open it up, and
I've got that box set on my wish list on Discogs.
It came with a DVD.
Yeah. It's not even for sale. It's not even no one's selling that bad boy.
And that's where it had there's the Heart of Metal. It's the same one you have. It's the identical same version. This one's still sealed. It also came with the remastered Puppet of Destruction CD. And then I had this CD that has never been reissued in anything else, which is called Before the Pit. And as I was telling you, we had all that time between the 2 albums. You were asking about hiatus.
Oh yeah.
It's got all the demos and stuff from that time, and
everything you recorded in between is just there on that one.
Yeah, it's got 17 different tracks from that time period.
Oh man, yeah, that'd be awesome.
I've actually thought about talking to Roxx about, because it's been so long, about releasing this CD on its own. So we'll see. Maybe they'll do it.
I don't know, man.
But anyhow,
yeah, I'd say keep it as it is. Make that the collector's item.
It also came with these little cards, and man, these things, we had to sign they're all hand signed. They're literally signed by all the band members, and it took us forever to sign all those freaking things. Yeah. But it also came with this little pack that has there's a sticker and a guitar pick and a patch, and yeah, it was a nice little package that they put out. They only put, I think it was 100 of them. Yeah, it says on the back. This is number 76 of 100.
Yeah.
So there's only 100 of them available. So yeah, they're kind of hard to find. But yeah, anyhow, it's a career anthology kind of thing.
Yeah. So this is 4 new songs.
4 new songs, which we
yeah.
recorded to do an EP. And again, I approached Retroactive Records about the EP, and he's like, and again, he's like, nope, don't do EPs. I don't want to put out an EP. He goes, I'm not interested. I said, well, we want to really put this out as an EP. So then we approached Roxx, and he's like, I'll put it out. He goes, but I don't want to put out an EP. I'm like, well, he's like, why don't we do this, and we'll do a box set, and we'll put other songs on there, and put some rare tracks on there and stuff like that. And so we're like, okay, let's do that. So that's what it ended up being. So yeah, there's 4 new songs, which are actually my favorite Ultimatum songs of all of us. We definitely were a thrash band by that time.
Yeah.
Those songs are very thrashy, but there's like several remixes on here. Heart of Metal's remixed. Locked in Chains is remixed. There's a re-recorded version of Mortal Stomp from the first album from 2008. There's a re-recorded version of Blink from 2007. Remixed version of One for All. So yeah, and then the rest of them were just tracks from different albums. But the booklet came out nice too, because every spread is a different era of the band. Yeah,
it's packed with notes and statements from people. I think Ron Reinert, Dark Angel, and Oil has wrote something in here.
Yeah, Steve Rowe. I can't remember.
Steve Rowe, yeah.
That was really nice that the label did that. They just reached out to several people and said, "Hey, Ted Kirkpatrick from Tourniquet."
I think it's perfect as a, if you're new to the band and you're curious, perfect introduction, but also a perfect, finishing piece to the collection as well. It works both ways.
It did come out. This came out as a solo DVD as well. But it too is now out of print and hard to find. But
if I bought that though, if I found a copy of that and bought it, would that work here in the UK? Is that American only?
It would work in your computer. It would not work on a regular standard DVD player.
Right.
But I think it would work on a Blu-ray player, from what I understand, or in your CD-ROM. But it won't work on a regular one. Yeah. So yeah, because it's definitely formatted for the US. Because I've got several from Europe that play fine on my computer.
I used to have a multi-regional one, but they're hard to come by nowadays. You used to be able, say you didn't buy it multi-regional. What you would do is enter a code, and it would unlock it. I don't know what the point of all that is anyway, but I've tried tracking one of those down, and
this is another one that Roxx has been talking about putting this out on vinyl. And I'm kind of I don't know. Here's the deal. I sang for Once Dead. Well, it was called Vengeance Rising up until the day before the show. They changed the name to Once Dead, so it became Once Dead Return with a Vengeance was the name of the show we did. I ended up staying with them for 2 years. Here's the deal, though. I was out in California for a week or two before the show, and we were recording. Not recording. We were practicing together, because none of those guys had played together for years. So we all got together. We started playing together. They didn't have a bass player at the time, so Ultimatum's bass player came in, was just filling in on the bass when we needed him. And then finally, the day of the show, we did one more practice. Well, I ended up getting sick. I ended up getting really sick. And the day of the show, I was feeling horrible. And I could just
have a lot of rehearsal time either, did you?
Well, yeah, we rehearsed for almost a week before. We had every night we were in the studio rehearsing, but so I was ready to go for the show. But that morning that day was packed. We had an interview with some magazines. Everybody was all excited about the Vengeance Rising reunion, and so we had a video interview with HM Magazine. We ended up doing some other magazine interviews. That we had a practice with the original bass player who came in that day, and then Ultimatum opened the show, so I had to sing for Ultimatum, and then there was a band between us, and then Ultimatum, and then Once Dead had to play. So I had to do 2 shows that night, but I ended up getting sick.
Yeah.
And I was downing honey. Excuse me. Sound like I'm getting sick now, but it's allergies. I ended up drinking tons of honey and tea, just trying to keep my voice, because I was so sick and everything was so raw. So when I hear this, I can hear I can hear it in my voice.
You can hear it, yeah.
Because I just.
To the average person, but you can hear it, it.
Yeah, so it drives me up a wall. But it's it's a different style of vocals than I did in Ultimatum. But I ended up staying with him for 2 years. Almost recorded a new. I was in the middle of working on a new album. I was writing lyrics and writing songs with Doug Theme for the new album, and then I got what I call the Left Foot of Fellowship out of the band.
Yeah.
So I was kicked out of the band. We even started to do pre-sales, and I was running the Once Dead page. And then again, we had those boards back in the day, and so I was putting all this stuff on the Ultimatum page, and all the Ultimatum fans were buying up the Once Dead album that wasn't yet recorded, and it pissed off one of the guys in the band that so many Ultimatum fans were buying the stuff, and they weren't getting their old Vengeance fans as much. And then people started they brought me out to California, and they were like, "Hey, we're going to record a demo of this one song that I had never heard of. Here's the lyrics." I'd never even heard it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I'm like, "We want you to sing it in this style." What? So it was really weird. And my bass player from Ultimatum had come with me again, and he was in the studio with me, and he's like, "We want you to sing it like Bon Scott." What? Okay. Now we want me to sing it like this. Now we want you to sing it like this. And they kept trying to tell me these different style of vocalists. We want you to sing it like that. And I was like, this is weird. And then they're finally like, okay, sing it like you would sing it. So I belted it out, and Rob's in there with me. He goes, "Dude, that sounded good." And I'm like, cool. As I didn't understand what was going on with all this sing it like Bon Scott stuff.
Yeah.
What it was is they were basically trying to get me to sing different because they didn't want me to sound like I sang in Ultimatum.
Yeah.
Because the one guy in the band, I don't want to say his name because I have no hard feelings against the guys, but one guy in the band didn't want Once Dead to be compared to Ultimatum, so they kind of kicked me out. Well, when it was announced that they kicked me out, 3/4 of the pre-sales, they wanted their money back. So that made things even worse.
So
and then I was the one who was running the Once Dead page.
I'm really annoyed that my album that hasn't even been recorded yet is selling. Because
it was a weird. And then the thing is the Doug Theme tried to he called me to let me know that I was out of the band, but he didn't tell me that was the reason why. He gave me some other excuse about because I was living in New Mexico, all those other guys were in California, and he's like, it's just too far and it's too expensive, and I was like, oh man, no problem, it was cool. And so I ended up calling all the guys in the band individually after I got kicked out, including the bass player at the time was Angelo Spino from he was in Reverend and Heretic and all those. He was a pretty well-known bass player. So I called him up like, dude, it was so cool playing with you. And he was like shocked on the other end. He was like, he wasn't even saying anything. And I'm like, what's up? He goes, "You're not angry with me?" I'm like, why would I be angry with you? He goes, "Well, we kicked you out of the band." So it's not a big a deal. I said, I was just glad to sing the very first show with them. It was just fun. I was like, this is not my main band. I was just having a good time. And that's not a big deal for me. Oh, wow. Cool. So I've been friends with him ever since then. I guess he expected me to cuss him out or something,
Yeah.
Anyhow, I've been rambling for an hour and 15 minutes. Sorry.
That's why you're here. Yeah. So I mean,
lots of stories.
That's a pretty good collection there, Scott. What do you think?
Yeah. It was 20 years of work, and I miss being on stage, but and so does everybody else. I went to see Creator and Possessed and Testament a few weeks ago, and Rob Whitlock, bass player, and I went together, and we kind of were talking about it on the way there, and we're like, yeah, we both missed the stage, man. We love the stage, getting up there and playing to the crowds, but the amount of work we put into it was a lot. And he runs a business now. I run a business now. It's just too hard to do that and run a business and maintain your family life, So
I don't know, into the standard that you were playing at as well. You're not going to be rehearsing 3 times a week, are you?
No, it's just impossible. Yeah, well, one of the last gigs we played this big festival out in California, and it was headlining the show was Ultimatum and Deliverance, and I love Deliverance. I'm a huge Deliverance fan, as you know. But something happened. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you the whole story because I don't know the whole story. But basically, Jimmy Brown was supposed to fly out a day or two before the show to practice with the rest of the band who all lived in California. So they never practiced. So he missed his flight the morning of the show on top of it. So they never got to practice at all. So Ultimatum hit the stage that night, and we were like, we had been together, 18 years at that point, practicing constantly. I mean, we could play our songs inside and out. We could probably play them backwards.
Yeah, with the lights out. Yeah,
and we had all our stage moves down. I mean, we were very energetic on stage. We worked out moves where there was parts of songs I'd go over and I'd run behind Robert, and he'd have the neck of the guitar, and I'd do the picking while he was playing the top part, and we just were very animated on stage. So we put on a fantastic performance. And it was one of our last shows. And then Deliverance played next, and it was a train wreck. And this is what this really discouraged us after the fact. It was a train wreck. They were obviously very sloppy. One of the greatest drummers ever, Jim Chafin from The Crucified, among others. He was playing drums, but when you don't know this, when you don't practice, everybody's off time. They brought it. For some reason they brought up the drummer, the guitar player or the bass player who was playing with him at the time. They brought up his son to play No Time on drums, and it was just like, it's just like a rehearsal. What's going on here? Yeah. And then they brought one of the other guitar players was there, and they brought him up on the stage to play. And then it was Jimmy wasn't singing the words. He had forgotten half the words, so he was putting the mic out into the crowd to have them sing the words. There were how Deliverance's music is. There's like a lot of where those tight breaks, they were just running through them. It was just a disaster. I've seen Deliverance before that. I've seen them probably good 10 times, and they were great. But that show was horrible. Then we get the review in Heaven's Metal magazine some weeks later, and they said a lot of really nice things about us. Then they went on to say how great Deliverance was and how they brought the house down at the end. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that was just disappointing. But like I said, we were been together so long, we could not have practiced at all, before the show, and would have been fine because we had been playing those songs so long. But it was a good time. 20 years of my life, and I don't regret it.
No, and you've got a good catalog that you've got under your belt, which you can do whatever you want with. You could reissues, and you've got that for the rest of your life. So
actually, I forgot. I can't see myself. I see you, so I'm even wearing a Deliverance shirt.
Yeah,
that was just coincidence. I just happened to be wearing that shirt today. So
yeah, no, you should be proud, man. And thanks for sharing your story with me. Thanks for coming on the channel again. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. And guys, if you've not, check out Ultimatum. You've got 4 or 5 awesome studio albums, solo albums, studio albums. You got awesome compilation at the end. Got a pretty cool live album in there as well. And as far as cover albums go as well, because they are hit and miss. No, this is one of the better ones as well. So yeah, Ultimatum. Go check them out if you haven't already. And Scott,
thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure speaking with you. And I'll speak to you again soon. And thanks for watching, folks. Give us one of them. Subscribe if you haven't. And I'll see you all next time. Take care, folks.